Wealth, Poverty, and Politics, quote, "The difference between seeing economic disparities as due to differences in the production of wealth and seeing those disparities as due to the transfer of wealth from some people to other people is fundamental." Explain that.
Well, I think there are a lot of people who regard so-called disparities and inequities in income as something that requires some great explanation, seem to assume that in the absence of some intervention, everyone would have something roughly equal income. Virtually everything that goes into the production of income varies enormously between groups, between nations, between people on the flatlands and the people in the mountains. You name it, it varies.
It varies. And I take it, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I was reading this, I take it as one of the principal efforts of this book to correct the thinking of Americans who have grown up, most of us, in conditions that by the standards of human history and by the standards of many other places on the globe today would be conditions of almost staggering wealth.
Yes.
Even poor people in this country have smartphones, televisions, cars, and so forth. And we tend to assume, it may be human nature, we tend to assume that our conditions are normal and conditions that differ from ours are the anomaly. And, and this book says, no, 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 no.
Well, good heavens, and especially if you look back through time, really it's only within the last 5 or 10% of the existence of human beings that there's been agriculture. I mean, think what that means, that people had to feed themselves hunting and gathering, fishing, herding animals. And of course that meant that you couldn't have cities because for all those other ways of living, you need an enormous amount of land per person. If you were to, one Manhattan would probably be enough, to spread famine throughout the world. So that I start with geography because that's the most implacable obstacle, and geography is anywhere close to being normal. For example, just geographic phenomena. In the great majority of all the tornadoes in the entire world occur in the middle of the United States. You don't hear about tornadoes in London or Paris or Beijing. And you don't hear about them in New York or San Francisco for that matter. That just in one little place in the world, all the conditions are there for a tornado alley. And it's true with so many other things. Nothing is evenly spread out. There are rivers on every continent, but the rivers aren't the same.
Let me add, I was especially struck, let me give you this. Here's a quotation from the book. "Western Europe's rivers often lead out into open seas, providing access to seaports around the world. But most rivers in Eastern and Southern Europe are quite different."
Yes.
What's the difference, and what bearing has that had on economic development?
Well, the rivers in Eastern Europe tend to flow into lakes and inland seas. And so when you get to the end of the Danube or the Don, you are not out in the open ocean.
You're in the Black Sea or the Caspian.
That's right. And then if you want to get to the Atlantic, you have to go to the entire length of the Mediterranean to get out there. The rivers in Russia, most of those empty into the Arctic Ocean, which is not quite as convenient as the Atlantic or the Pacific. And what that means is that you can't have the commerce, you can't have industry and whatnot to the same extent that you have. More importantly, you're not connected with the rest of the human race to the same extent. And one of the major findings throughout the book is that isolation almost invariably means poverty and backwardness.
In the mountains?
Yes.
If you live in Eastern Europe or Russia and you're cut off from the rest of the world, isolation leads, in fact, well, we'll get to this in a moment, but it seems even to have an effect on cognitive ability, prolonged isolation.
Oh, sure. Well, certainly in terms of not just sheer knowledge, you don't have the same knowledge, but more than that, you're not aware of how the basic things of life are done differently in other parts of the world. And so people who are isolated will keep doing things for centuries or thousands of years. So, for example, when the British landed in Australia, they find the Australian Aborigines are living really at a Stone Age level. Similarly, when people from Europe came to the Canary Islands, the same thing. They had no idea of iron In Australia, they had no idea of iron. It's one of the great sources of iron ore in the world.
Staying with geography for a moment, again, one of the themes that seems to me to run through the book is this question of your resistance to notions of, to attempting to impose notions of morality on economic conditions. So, for example, with geography, some people happen to be born in Western Europe where the rivers lead to the sea, and some people happen to be born in Russia where some rivers lead to the frozen Arctic and some rivers lead to the Black Sea. And it's nobody's fault.
Yes.
It's luck.
Yes.
Or sheer happenstance. Nobody's robbing anybody else.
Yes. As one economic historian said, you know, the world has never been a level playing field.
From a review of wealth, poverty, and politics in the Washington Post. Now, I'm going to I don't want you to swing at me, all right? Sowell does manage to score a clean hit on those who now complain that income inequality is too high by noting their refusal to say what level of inequality they would consider acceptable. Fair enough. What we also learn in this book, however, is that there is apparently no level of inequality of income or opportunity that Thomas Sowell would consider unacceptable, close quote. And you reply?
Well, it's hard to know where to begin when someone misses the whole point of the whole book. Of course, the big confusion among the redistributionists is between opportunity and outcomes. And one of the examples I used in a recent column was that, you know, when I was a kid, I briefly tried to play basketball. And I mean, I was lucky to hit the backboard, never mind the basket, you know. But I had just as much opportunity to play basketball as Michael Jordan had. You cannot measure opportunity by outcomes. And that's what the redistributionists insist on doing. They say this group obviously didn't have equal opportunity because they were turned down for loans more so than that group. Yes, if you have lower credit scores, you'll be turned down for loans more so than people with high credit scores.